So when I was looking at the priorities on your website, the first one that was listed was getting big money out of politics, which
Yes.
I couldn't love more. I'm also a huge fan of doing that. I speak about it all the
hmm
time. Why is this a priority for not just
hmm
you, I guess, but for our structure of government democracy
hmm
going forward?
Sure. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background. Should I just take a second to
Yeah.
tell you how I got here? So, as you alluded to at the beginning, I am a scientist. So I worked in clinical research for almost 20 years. My PhD is in biochemistry, molecular biology. So it's a basic research, but I moved later on into clinical research. And I loved my job. But over the last few years, I started to get disheartened when I realized many of the treatments I was working on would not be accessible to millions of Americans because of the lack of health insurance or underinsurance. And given that we live in the richest country in the world, this is quite a puzzle. Like, how can that be? Why are we in such a dire strait for millions of Americans? If you start to look at, why do we have a broken healthcare system? Like, are these problems unsolvable? No, we just have fantastic pieces of legislation that can actually solve these problems. So, for example, I'm a big champion of Medicare for All, a single user universal healthcare plan. Of course, if somebody else comes up with a not even a better system, that'll be a single user, single pair, single pair universal healthcare plan. That's fantastic. But at the moment, the only one that's out there is Medicare for All. You always find out that somehow behind those scenes, there's a corporation or a special interest group or a lobbyist who are actually giving money to our Congress members to get the vote they want. So, unfortunately, a lot of the members of Congress are not serving the people anymore. They're serving their donors. And that's why big money in politics is, I find it the root cause of most of our problems. And that's why I put it at the very top of my priority list.
Yeah, and another one on there was lowering the cost of living, obviously another big problem for many people.
hmm
So first, I guess let me ask like I guess just how would you do that? And I mean,
hmm
so like obviously as one senator in a Republican administration, not so much you can do, but like what
hmm
are the sort of like
hmm
policies or steps that you would
hmm
support, say they came across your desk that you think would help us get there?
Yeah. So when you say lower the cost of living, it actually encompasses a lot, right? So, for example, where is the money that people are earning? Where is it going? So, first of all, to begin with, if you people need livable wages. So that means if you work a 40-hour week job, a full-time job, you should be able to um, have a roof over your head, food in your belly, and healthcare and access to transportation, etc. So to begin with, the livable wages are very low. But then on top of it, food is very expensive. And that's partially because of these large industrial farming that's taking over our country. The grocery stores are these chain supermarkets, so they actually can set the prices. Um, that is actually impacting the cost of food. And during the COVID pandemic, some of the grocery stores they raised their prices because they said the supply chain was impacted. But after the pandemic was over, they didn't necessarily lower the prices. It's price gouging is going on basically, and price gouging is impacting. And then on top of it, people have very low wages. So there's a very here in New Hampshire, I've met with many people who are truly struggling with low wages and then high cost of living.
So how do you reach across the aisle with
hmm
Republicans to where maybe obviously it's hard to get complete everything you want
hmm
when you're reaching across the aisle, but how do you work with them to start addressing these issues that
hmm
regardless of political affiliation, all Americans are experiencing?
Yeah. So sometimes people ask me, are you a progressive or where do you stand? And my answer is always, I'm a scientist.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to not answer that, but what I'm trying to basically say is I don't lead with ideology, I lead with solutions. Scientists and engineers, we're very simple people. We say, is there a problem? If there's a problem, the next step is what are the causes of the problem? What is causing the problem? And then number three is what are the potential solutions to the problem? Number four would be, well, let's implement one of those solutions. And number five, check if the problem has been resolved. So if in Congress, my plan is to actually look at pieces of legislation, whether I sponsor it myself, or if somebody else does it. I'm not going to look at the co-sponsors' affiliations, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or independents. I'm going to look at the piece of legislation and look at the impact on American citizens. And if it's a great piece of legislation, it doesn't matter what the source is. I will absolutely support it and champion it.
And I just have two questions left, kind of more New Hampshire focused. The
Yeah.
first one, what is the problem or the issue you hear most from voters, like within
Mhm.
New Hampshire? And then what would you do specifically to address their concerns?
Yeah, so we have a serious housing crisis in New Hampshire. It is really hard for people in my town of Exeter, which is in the Seacoast region of New Hampshire. Um, people are sleeping in their cars, Brendan. I mean, in the richest country in the world, imagine for a second, people are sleeping in their cars. They put up towels to block off the windows, and then they have to sleep there. How painful is that? It breaks your heart, right? And I always get choked up when I'm thinking about the horrors of that situation. These folks have jobs, and yet they cannot afford a place to live. The housing costs here are really out of control. So how do you address the housing crisis? First of all, there is low inventory, that's for sure, and we need to build more structures. We also have a zoning regulations that are very archaic. You have to have in some towns and cities, you have to have like a whole acre lot. It has to be only a certain height, it has to be single family. So that kind of archaic rules and regulations also impact development. But it's not just building new homes and working with the local communities to address those zoning issues. On top of it, certain counties in New Hampshire, the especially in the Lakes region where it's very pretty and people like to buy houses there, 40% of the homes are second homes or third homes, which means they're not owner occupied year round. In a housing crisis of this magnitude, to have homes that are not occupied year round, that is really criminal. So that's another problem that we have to address. But another problem is a lot of the homes are being purchased by businesses to turn into Airbnbs. And then again, in a housing crisis of this magnitude, to have so many homes become just vacation homes is also really bad. And then private equity is coming into our state and purchasing large trailer parks or manufactured home lots, and then making those homeowners into renters.